welcome everybody from both coasts, north, south, east, west, Great Plains to where we have Texas and East Coast. And I saw even Michelle's here too. So up in the Great Plains area. So thank you all for coming. And I don't have much to add in terms of comments for this morning. It's been an interesting month. We've been moving towards trying to get the school back open again, and we're moving with very slow steps. I have a class scheduled for the summer, and Richard has a class scheduled for the summer. Richard's 101 class, beginning wood turning, has been filled. So that's kind of nice, but it's a very small class, and that's what we're doing. I have a nested box class, which has still too few participants for us to actually start. We may have to cancel it unless a couple more of you want to just come in and play a little bit and have fun and be back in a community. We're kind of ready to get back to pretty much like normal in the fall. Things could still change between now and then, but right now we're looking at running classes with 12 participants starting in the fall and a full cadre of that. And since the classes still are a little smaller than normal, Richard, for instance, is going to be doing 2 introduction to wood turning classes. Those classes always fill. And with 2 sessions scheduled, we should be able to take care of the needs of people coming back into wood turning. I'm hopeful for that. So we've got a pretty full schedule, and we welcome Dave Bentley to our teaching staff in the fall. And he's got some new classes and some novel classes. And I think the advantage of bringing new blood in is we have new looks at things. And so check the catalog when it comes out. It's in publication right now, and you should be getting it soon. And as soon as I know it's out, I will get a note out to the whole club about our listings for fall. We're still going to be working under some limited circumstances. We'll still use masks and some distancing and some wiping down and so on. But things are a little bit better. And hopefully things will continue to move that same direction. For the club, our hope is that we will be able to come back together as a group for the summer picnic. We have made some commitments for that space at the park where we've always been going. And in an outdoor event, we can manage a lot of things. But for instance, if we're going to have our little swap meet, you're going to have to bring your own table to display your ware. We can't put it all together. But we're looking forward to being able to get our summer picnic as the start back event for the club. September, we're planning on our turn for the troops. It's not the normal month we've done it in the past, but we're going to do it in September. The difference is going to be, rather than allow everybody to come in and socialize as we really look forward to, we're going to limit the attendance to people who are there to turn, and you'll sign up for a time slot. And the time slot will say, okay, from 9 to 10, you're here to turn. We're going to have everything set up and working pretty much like we've done in the past, but you'll have a time window to be in the room, and then other people come in after that. That's how we can manage it. It's a little strange, but it's kind of the way we're going to be doing it in September. In October, we'll probably start back with in-person meetings, but there still has to be some limits to that. We're hopeful. One of the things that Dave and I have been working on is the concept of doing meetings through 2 formats at the same time: in person for a limited number of people, and then Zoom at the same time. So we'll have a live demonstration, but we will be transmitting it in this format also. So those of you who either are not inclined to come back into a social environment or unable for some reason or other can still participate in the meetings. How much we're going to be, we want Mike BULAT to drop in one of these days. Yeah. One of the things that we're going to have to do is figure out how to manage the attendance in the room. And that's something we haven't really worked out yet. Our fingers are crossed and hoping that things will continue to move the direction they are right now. And then October, November, December, hopefully we'll move back into something that looks sort of like what it did 2 years ago. Remember 2 years ago when we used to meet? Yeah, well, something like that, maybe. So we're hopeful. I'm going to be doing the demo in December. I always have started the year off in January, but because we have a holiday party now rather than a Christmas party, and that's in January, we just flipped those two events. So the holiday party will be in January, and I will close out the year instead of starting a new one. So I'm interested in you sending me an email if there's a subject you would like me to cover during that December presentation. I've done one every year for what, 15 years or something like that now. And it seems like I've covered just about everything I can think of. But if there's something you'd like me to revisit or some aspect of wood turning that you haven't had covered through one of the sessions that Richard has scheduled for us over the last, what, year and a half, 2 years, drop me an email. Let me know, and I'll see what I can work out. It's plenty of time to put that program together. If you're following the work we're doing, Dave and I continue to post. I don't know where we are now, David, in terms of numbers of videos, but we're on to number 5 in the series on segmented turning. We're taking little tiny bites, saying, well, here's one more little feature, here's one more little feature. And we've got several more to do in that series yet. So that one's going to continue on for a while, but keep checking back to our website or Dave or my YouTube channels. And if you're following it, just subscribe. That way you get a notice when we put something new up and you don't have to go back and look. YouTube will tell you. So.
Yeah, we're sitting at 73, Jim.
73
for training videos with you, and then for the total videos for the club, about 150.
So all of our presentations have been taped, those that we've been allowed to tape and retain. So those are there also. And Dave's constantly working on the website, changing things, modernizing it, cleaning it up a little bit. So keep looking back, see what you can find, and if it's still where it used to be. Okay. Hugh, just in general, do we have any membership people we'd like to acknowledge?
No, there are no new members this month.
Okay, well, that's okay. I understand that. So in terms of anything else, any other announcements in general we want to make? Larry, do you want to talk a little bit about the Beads of Courage and update us a little bit more? You've kind of already done that, but anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, only that we received a donation of 34,000 colored pencils. I don't know if any of you saw the newsletter, but I put it in there. One of our members did a Beads of Courage box using colored pencils, and a night nurse saw it. Her son had collected pencils. He's no longer with us, but she wanted a good place to donate them, so she gave them to us. If anybody wants to make a box with colored pencils, I have a couple for you. Just let me know how many you need, or around how many you need. And if you have a preference on colors, I can let you know what I have. Actually, there's probably not one that I don't have. It's taken a lot of room up in my shop, but they're not the easiest things to make. The lead wants to smear, but I have a couple things that I figured out, and I can kind of guide you on that. You don't have to have a pressure pot or anything like that. There's other ways of doing them. They're kind of fun. They're real colorful, and the kids like them, I guess, because of the colors. So if you want to, please use some pencils. I've got 34,000 of them. I didn't count every single one. There might be like 39,000, who knows? But anyway, let me know. My contact information is all on the website.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing more outcome from doing that. You can put them together without doing a potting, you said, Larry?
Yeah, the first one I did, I used epoxy, and a long setting epoxy. It takes about an hour to set up. You could actually work with it longer than that. It wasn't entirely pencils. I used some wood in there, which helped a lot. And there's other ways of doing it. I did do one with a resin that Dave Fleissig helped me out with, but I didn't use a pressure pot, and it's a great resin. None of it's cheap, I have to be honest, but
yeah,
it's worth it. It's fun, and it's a good cause. If you guys give to charities, it's a good charity to give to. And I also, there's one in show and tell that I just did. And also I did a bowl for her, for the boy's mom. She asked me to do that for her. So you'll see that too.
Okay, thank you. So without anything else, let's just go into show and tell. Hugh, I'll come back to you again. You're first on our list of show and tell. So give Richard a second to get it set up, and we'll go into show and tell.
Everybody see it?
We got it on screen.
Okay. You is number one.
Well, I'm still working at this wave situation. So as you can see, it's a segmented bowl. I used a different coloring system this time. I used a epoxy. It's called, I can't, I had it here somewhere a minute ago. Anyway, hang on one second. Epoxy script, and this is a new one to me. But anyway, it's better in many ways because it's like a clay, and you pick the two parts together, but you really have to mix them a lot, much more so than I originally thought, because the grayish color one part of it is gray. But anyway, after it does, but it works out fairly well. So I was fairly happy with that. So anyway, that's it.
Terrific, thanks. Dave Fleisick, the source of our epoxy, I guess. Where are you in terms of your numbers of COVID vessels now, David?
I think I wrapped it up at about 54 or some number like that. Excuse me. This one has no epoxy on it. Well, other than as adhesive. Richard, put up the other picture if you will. Somebody had just posted on chat something about stave construction, and that's what this is. And so I had this spalted, very much spalted maple. And by the way, I use epoxy to glue these together. I've had better luck with this, especially with veneers than water-based glue, which tends to make the veneers swell up and harder to join together. So 24 hours to cure basically, and then you're off to the races. So here's the finished product. It's besides the spalted maple, a little bit of holly is the white, and Cadillacs is both the top and bottom, along with some strips of veneer. Finishing was an absolute nightmare. I think I tried about 4 different things and probably 20, 25 coats of various things before I could get a decent finish on that spalted maple. So that made me regret ever having started the bloody thing.
Did the cell structure break down enough that it's acting like a sponge for your finish? Is that what's the problem?
Absolutely, absolutely. You put a coat on, and when it was wet, it looked really nice. And you come back an hour later and look at it, and it looked like you hadn't put anything on. So
Yeah. So Dave, this is where stabilization can be your friend. If you, that will really help with that kind of situation.
Joel, one of these days, I'll come visit you or something, and you can show me how to do stabilization, because I've never done it.
All right. It's been a while since I've done it. I haven't been doing much turning during the COVID years. So you've been my hero. Well done.
We're going to get Joel to do a class in winter on our stabilization processes again. We couldn't get him going in the fall, but we'll get him back in the winter. Thanks, David. Peter Travis, what do you got for us?
Picked up some wood from Michael Hackett, and it was, quite some big chunks. So I cored them, and surprisingly, I picked it up after about 5 months, and it was dry enough to turn. So I turned this ball, and then I finished it with Yorkshire grit and Hampshire sheen, and then I put it on the bottom. And I have a friend, a young Afghanistani girl that I sell glass to, and she recently got married, so I give it to her, and she was thrilled. But it came out quite nice. No defects, no cracks, nothing. So I was very pleased with that.
So Peter, tell us what the name of those two finishes were again, Yorkshire and Hampshire?
Yorkshire Grit and then Hampshire Sheen.
Why am I not surprised about the name of those two?
Yeah. Well, I've got to plug the bricks every once in a while. And I want more support. We're entering the European Nations Cup for football, not soccer, football this week. So, we're playing Croatia on Sunday. So big hopes for us.
Good luck. Charlie
Sorry,
Saul,
forget
what do you
it.
got for us?
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Well, great. I have a work in progress, and I have to tell you that I really do admire our members that do clever turning. My mind doesn't seem to go there. And but then I saw this this article in the British wood turning magazine this month, Celtic Knot, and it just inspired me to go ahead. And I said, how do you do that? And so so this is a work in progress. This is the Celtic Knot. It will be when I finally finish turning. This is going to be a tool handle, but I haven't identified what type of gouge I want to insert. When I identified, who knows, maybe during the summer picnic, there'll be something I'll come up with that I'll be able to finish this this handle, and it should turn out something like that, except for mine has a couple pieces of veneer for the contrast.
Yeah. So are you sure, you're absolutely sure you constructed that based on the directions? Is that glue up doesn't look right.
I know, but it is actually correct, and it's actually cutting. It's a one cut on each. Well, you cut one
Right.
curve, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of material, and then you insert your
Right.
veneer, and then turn it one turn, and do that 4
Again.
times. And there's supposedly a Celtic knot in there, and I hope to be able to show the group it completed when I finally find a tool to put in it.
When you don't cut all the way through, it gives a false impression of where the wood is.
That's right. So I know that the
Right.
tool handle will end up something like what, 1 5/8 at probably sort of the fattest part. And so that's sort of what this is supposed to be. It's a 2-inch piece. And so when you subtract out the 1/8 of an inch all around, hopefully I'll have enough Celtic knot to show. So I encourage people to take a look at that article. It's wood turning this month. And he just put a contrast wood, and I put the veneers. And so I'm curious how it will turn out.
Well, don't wait till August to turn it, Charlie. We want to see the handle before you find the right tool to stick in it.
Well, if I don't know what tool to put in it, then I don't know what size to drill.
Good point. Thank you. Well, we'll look forward to it. Claudia
Okay.
Foster, what do you got for us? Good to see you.
Hello. Well, the reason I went crazy with the carob, but I put all of these in because the color is absolutely spectacular.
Mhm.
And I wanted to thank everybody, from those who got the carob, to cut the carob, to finish the wood sealer on, to selling the carob. So I had lots of fun with it. The one that just came on prior to this had lots of openings and holes. Yes, this one, but I loved it. So at any rate, it's really my thank you to everybody who brought the wood and got them for all of the wood turners. And as I say, the color is spectacular. So hopefully we'll get some carob again.
Well, we'll keep watching for more. That was a huge tree, and we harvested off of it for the better part of a year, it looked like, I think. But good job, Carol. Cheryl. Yeah.
Whoever I am, it's
Yeah.
okay. Paul
I'm sorry
usually
about
comes
that,
up under
Claudia.
my picture.
I'm going to go back some more coffee in a few minutes, and then I'll pull my act together. Thanks a lot. Michael Hackett, I understand you're a source of wood for some people. So what do you have for us? Oh, wow.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. This is a piece of black acacia, which I have a lot of, and I prepped it fine, but I do have some cracks in my piles out there. So this was an attempt to cover up some of those cracks with a faux fractal burning. I just used my wood carver and laid everything out, drew it out, and just trying to make some fractal burning. And it's a work in progress. But then I went and just with my wood burner and darkened everything up and darkened the rim and some of the openings down low. I'm not sure if this piece is still called a crotch, if it's not going from a large trunk to two similar sized trunks, but this is, you know, the trunk with a smaller branch coming off. I don't know if that's still called a crotch, but I used that smaller branch as the tenon spot to hold on to it, and it was a little challenging once I started popping through. Everything wanted to start moving, especially with, you know, some of the cracks that I had existing. So I could have worked on getting it a little thinner, I suppose, but I'm pretty happy with it, and it's a good add to my black acacia collection from this COVID era.
Thank you for doing it as a faux fractal burning. We as a club and as an organization are tantamount to saying you can't do that stuff. It's too dangerous. So we encourage you not to put voltages to pieces like that, but Michael's given you another alternative. That shot right there is gorgeous. Beautiful. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Rick Nelson, what do you got for us?
Well, this bowl is fairly unremarkable, but it was the technique in getting there that I wanted to share a little bit on. I had seen an example of this step lip thing on the internet somewhere some months ago, and I've been thinking about how to try and get to that level. And as I say, I started by making a fairly elaborate jig, and then I thought a little more about it and thought, well, I could adapt the wave jig from the beaver jig. So I did that. I made some modification to it, which would give it pitch instead of just the yaw that it really does well at. And then I stumbled across the idea that really I could do the same thing by tilting the bandsaw table a little bit and just using the John Beaver's jig just like it was. And actually that works very, very well. So as I say, I like the design of this. I would like to do some more. This was just a practice bowl to see if I could get the jig right, but I'm looking forward to trying a little bit more of that. So thank you.
I like the effect. I'd love to see how you have that set up. If you ever have some pictures for that to share with us on your next show and tell. A shot more from the side would give us more of an indication of how much drop there is to that shoulder.
Yeah,
Great.
it's pretty adjustable with you know, particularly with the angle. You know, if you tilt the bandsaw table when you cut this thing, why you can make that angle or the step anything you want. In fact, you could do 3 or 4 steps instead of just 2. But I haven't done anything more than really this bowl after I finally figured out an easy way to do it.
Neat. Larry Batty.
Okay, so what's the hidden ingredient here, folks? There's about 1,100 of those 34,000 pencils in this thing. It was a challenge. I used Dave's epoxy. Dave does such a great job at this. Don't look too close, Dave. But anyway, it's colorful, and I think the kids will like it. So it was a project. And this is the vase that I did for the child's mother. She asked me to, I asked if we could pay her, and thank God she said no, but make me a bowl. So this is what I came up with. It was a little bit of a project too, but not nearly as bad. So there it is. Thank you.
So Larry, on those panels on this vessel, this segmented vessel here, how do you make up small panels and then build the segments?
Are you talking about the feature ring?
The feature ring, exactly.
Yeah, I made the ring in one piece, and then very carefully sliced it up, and then layered the different maple and it's Wingay on the dark one's Wingay. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it looks like you also have pencils in the top and the bottom feature rings also. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. I should have probably made those. Those are 20 segments, 20 piece segments rings. And I probably should have made the top and bottom one maybe 10, so you saw more pencils. But I kind of like the look, so lots of color. But again, it's hard to get them not to smear. You really have to use a cabinet scraper or some kind of scraper as the very last thing. And then when you sand, you have to be real careful not to hit the pencils, or they'll want to write all over your all over your vessel.
Larry, that's beautiful. What are roughly the dimensions of it?
This one's about 11 inches tall, and it actually ended up taller than I wanted it to. I kind of lost control of it. And it's about 9.5 inches wide.
That's big. Larry, I was thinking about your problem with smear. I was talking to Kurt Theobald one time about sanding. He did a lot of vessels with ebony and holly next to each other, and sanding always carried ebony dust into the holly. So he went to scraping, and used a cabinet scraper. And his final finishes were not with sandpaper, but with a standard cabinet scraper like we'd be using in furniture construction. Another option.
That's what I use, a scraper at the end. Even a scraper, a scraper tool for wood turning didn't quite get it. I even tried a skew, use that skew as a scraper, but the cabinet scraper was the best choice.
Beautiful. Well, I know there's a lot more work in that than it appears, but it's gorgeous. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I ask everybody to consider things that they had made in the past that they really liked, and to share some of those with us. And we have several of those. And the one person who I asked to do that didn't do it. And that's me. I forgot, didn't get around to it. And I really apologize for that. So I'm just going to take on the first, well, I'll take on the last one. You already got the slide up here, and let's go with that. I want to show you the piece I did and tell you why I liked it too. So I didn't get the picture in, but I'm going to do it at the end. So Mr. Bulat from our East Coast affiliate is number one to share. What do you got, Mike?
This is my trembler that I made at the Escalon School in Agen, France. This was my second trip to France. It's about 34 inches high. This one is a hanging trembler. In other words, it hangs down. They have them where they're standing tremblers too. The that piece gave me the most consternation, as you can imagine. The thing took me 4.5 days to make, and I'm pretty proud of the very piece on top. Actually, Escalon made that piece for me, and he used a piece of wood. It's their box elder that was left over from the old days in that village of Agen, where basically that's what they did. They turned the balls, and the women would hammer nails in them for their little game that they did. uh, the thickness of the stems at the bottom run 2 millimeters, and then they go up to 4 millimeters up to the top. So it's 2, 3, and 4 millimeter thicknesses on the bottom. Start out with one piece of wood naturally, and just take your time and go very slow. Use
Mike, tell us how you got it home.
that was a challenge. They put in a piece of glass. Actually, that's not glass that you're looking at. That's plastics from Tap Plastic, because I was not sure about the glass the wood expanding around the glass. But when I was in the France, the jet airlines from France, and I told them this was a French tradition, they were very careful with it. But when I got to Atlanta on my way to North Carolina, she said, "Oh, don't worry about it." And I found it upside down and in the corner. So, but it made the trip. So I was very, very happy with that. The thing was, used 3 tools: a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, 3/8 bowl gouge, and a 5 by 9 millimeter badan. And
That's
that was it.
Jean-Francois's favorite tool.
Yes, and that's how I got the thickness of the 2 millimeters. Just scraping the badan back and forth very, very carefully.
It's beautiful. A lot of
Well,
work
thank you.
too. And I expect you lost a few pounds in nervous energy too.
Especially during that one element. That was a pretty scary thing.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate seeing it again.
You're welcome.
Charlie Saul, what do you got for us?
Well, good morning
yeah.
again. This piece is fairly representative of the type of work, my style that I do. This is, I have typically pretty plain woods. So this is sycamore. And so I try to embellish the wood. My typical is going to be a hollow form. It's finished inside and out. And it encompasses a number of things that I like to do in decorative art. So one is that most of my pieces, my style is to have a kind of a beaded shoulder, as you can kind of see there, that defines the bottom and the top hemisphere. And then I do fretwork and carving, and then my own version of a basket weave illusion in pyrography. And as you note, the scales are graduated. So there'll be 11 scales in the widest section and on the tiniest section of the tail. Also, this rattlesnake is about life size. And finally, the finishes. So because I'm going to be handling it so much in carving, I finished the inside and the bottom hemisphere with wipe-on poly, leaving all the rest plain, do my carving. And then when I'm finished with the coloration, then I spray lacquer.
Charlie, how much time did you put into this piece?
Oh, gee, I don't know, Jim, but frankly, I think it went pretty quick.
I'm not sure I understand what quick means in terms of that detail of carving, but it's a beautiful, still a beautiful piece.
Well, thank you. Quick to me means that at first, when I got into wood turning, I promised myself I would never do anything so detailed. I couldn't imagine. But then after a while, you kind of start getting into these things, and it just becomes something that you want to do.
I'll remember it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vern Stovall, you have a piece for us. Oh, yeah. Need a microphone, Vern.
All right, I tried and then it
reversed.
You got it.
Okay, I've done teapots before, and I always thought of doing one of these. I like to do things that are not usually seen in wood. You know, this is usually a metal teapot. And so I get tired of doing bowls, so I try and do something different. And so a lot of times I just look at the internet and save pictures. Oh, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll make that one day. So I have a collection of pictures. And so that's what I did with this one. And Jim, you had the yellow cedar, so I didn't have to, color it or anything. So it still kind of looked somewhat like the brass. And so that once I got that, then I started working on it. And it took a long time because all the parts, especially the hinge area, I had to make those several times. And I tried bending wood for the handle, finally gave up on it and just made little tiny segments. And I just, it was real frustrating to do certain parts, especially the joints where the spout joins the body. It took a long time, and there were times when I get frustrated with it and put it away for a month or more, and then come back and do it again. But it's, I think, my favorite piece that I've done.
I remember there's a lot of problems you had to solve on that, and that's one of the reasons why it's probably one of your favorites, because you got them solved.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Carl, what you got for us?
This is something that I've just turned in the last year, I believe. It's pistachio burl. It's about 10 inches tall, about 4 inch, 3.5 at the top and about 2.5 at the bottom. Funny story about it. It was just a piece of old scrap wood that a friend gave me. Some wood, didn't even know what it looked like until I stuck it on the wood lathe and started turning it, and I just couldn't believe it. And it's one of my favorite pieces. I'm not real good at turning a lot of deep hollow forms like this, but I was pretty happy with the way this turned out. I finished it with lacquer, and it's just lacquer finish. The next piece, I've showed this before. This is the bottom of the bowl. Made this a few years back. It's one of my, it's my wife's favorite piece. And so I like it too. It was my first experience with segmented turning. I swore up and down I'd never do it again. But since then I've made a few other ones. But this one turned out really good. The feature ring there is black walnut shells cut in half, sliced across. A black walnut shell has a natural ring. Well, if you turn it sideways and slice it on the bandsaw, you'll get little slices like this, and they're really interesting to use for embellishing your stuff. And it's about 10 inches at the widest point, and it's about 6 inches tall. It's maple and walnut, and I finished it with lacquer also.
How did you cut the walnut shells safely?
Well, I just made a little, I made a little jig, just an L-shaped box. Not a box, I can't explain it. It's just a 90-degree sled, and I put it a stop block against it, and then I come off of it and just sliced them on my bandsaw that way. The first one I did it by hand. And a friend seen me do it and he about died. And he conned me into making a little sled, which I'm glad he did because it's a lot better.
I was thinking the same thing again about your fingers.
Yes, I use a bandsaw probably as much as anything in my shop. I'm real familiar with it, but I respect it. But it can be a dangerous tool if you don't watch what you're doing.
Understand.
But that's about it.
Thank you, Carl. Richard, Mr. VP, what do you have?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite pieces. I made it probably now about 15 years ago. It was easy for me to photograph because it is still sitting on my dining room wall, which is a gray wall. And just picked up my iPhone and there it was. This is my first segmented piece, not nearly as complex as some of the others we've seen, but I made it for like I said, for my wife. She had just gotten a new office and she said she needed a clock. Prior to this, I had made lots of other clocks, but I made them with just a disc and then putting the movement in the middle of the disc. This was a little more challenging because it's a ring. And so I had to figure out how I was going to cut the ring and mount the ring and put the layers of segments on it. But I figured it out. But that's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite things, because just solving those problems, thinking it through, was very satisfying. This is a close-up of the construction. It only has 48 pieces in it, but the way it was cut, it has maple veneer, 2 different colors of maple veneer in between the 2 pieces of the pieces of primo figured maple, and underneath that is a rosewood layer. And actually, it was almost by accident that I cut it so that the rosewood made a nice little border around the clock. Anyway, that's pretty much it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Gary, our last person. Thank you.
Well, hi from El Paso. And I got a little carried away with favorites here. The upper left one is a 14-inch spalded maple vase that I made in 2010. My old wood turning group in Inland Wood Turners in Riverside, somebody's grandfathers in their backyard of Washington State, they had this old tree. They brought it down. And so I was really fortunate to get that piece. And I like the figurine on that. Right next to it, to the right, is a big leaf maple burl. And I made that in 2 sections. That was one of my first 2 sections and put it together. And that turned out, I just really enjoy the figurine on that also. The bottom center is a toothpick holder. I'd go on trips with the wife and she was constantly complaining that she didn't have her toothpicks. So that's out of Purple Heart. It's my smallest box. I'm into boxes. And so that's my smallest box. And to the left is a trivet, wood magazine from March 2004. And I use that using a faceplate. And it's 2 different sets of configurations. And I did about 3 or 4 of those and I've never done them since. But I kept one. The rest went away as gifts. And you can see. So that's concludes my little favorite presentation.
Some beautiful woods in there. I appreciate it. Thank Gary. I think we're done, aren't we? Rick Nelson, you got another piece.
Forgot to put this on the list, Jim. Sorry.
No problem. Good.
Yes, again, this is a piece that I made probably a year ago. At that time, I was just experimenting with redwood. Since California and redwood sort of identify with each other, I wanted to try and find a way to turn redwood. And I went from redwood boards that I bought at Home Depot down to finally a fence that had fallen down. And this was the first thing that I'd made with a fence that had fallen down. And of course, I had to waste a lot of it, but you know, if it's all laying on the ground, there's plenty of it. But in the end, I really like this one because I like the shape of it, and I was able to get it, the walls pretty thin on it. And it's, the red is the redwood, of course, but the other one is it's actually a little bit of spalting going on in a pine board. So, I mean, they're two really throwaway boards that turned into this vase. And again, it just appeals to me. I've shown this around a little bit, and it sort of has achieved unremarkable reviews by other people, but it's one of the things I look back on that I really enjoyed making.
I think one of the hard things about doing this piece, not only thin walled, but both woods are very difficult to cut cleanly. Thank you. I did have a piece and I forgot to photograph it, and that's my fault, but I want to go the other direction. I still want to show you the piece. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's a hollow form, not very large. And what I like about this, I must have made this 15 years ago. I hollowed it through the hole, piece of cherry. But what I like about it most is I like just holding it. It's one of these things that fits my hand, and when I'm hanging onto it like this, it's very comfortable. So it is a very unremarkable piece, and I can't remember how I did it. I can't get my finger in the hole now to check how the wall thickness is anymore. I probably did at one point in time. But it's a piece that appeals to me only because it felt nice and the shape was appropriate for me at that particular time. It was cherry, and the just, this is sapwood on the top and the heartwood in the bottom. Anyway, I'm sorry I didn't get a photograph in time. Guys, thank you. Guys and gals, thank you for sharing. Claudia, I do remember your name, I really do.